Okay, thanks, Sally. Right. Welcome back to Successful Selling and Winning Orders today. So what are we going to talk about in this session? We're going to look at types of customers, types of purchases, how to sell your product, when to sell, when to stop. We're going to look briefly at bids and tenders because these may become a very large portion of many of your roles and your businesses. How to keep your customers. We're going to look at upselling. We're going to look at CRMs, which are customer relationship management software. So how you keep in touch and you record your interactions with your customers. And we're going to look at the online marketplace. Some of this we will skirt through because some of it we've just covered in content as well. Because as you probably guessed by now, there's a very big overlap between every single session because your business is like a globe. It's not a linear line. So we'll start with types of customers. These are the main types that most of us will come into contact with. B2C and B2B, most of us will know, but some of us will also work in the B2G world. Okay, so this is working with local governments, with suppliers, big government entities, the MOD, ministry, and so forth. Sorry, someone's just sneezed in the background of my office. I apologise. So I think, does everyone know the difference of these already, or does anyone want me to run through what they are? I'm going to assume you are all comfortable with these different types of customers. These are headings that should be in your business plan and your marketing plan. Okay, so in that persona part of your business plan, who are you looking at selling to? Who is your target audience? These are the top headings. Even if it says, I will not trade in the business B2G world, I have no interest in that at the moment, you still reference it in your plan. And then you expand those personas under this. Okay. Resellers are another way that many of us, and particularly Clive, you will probably find you will use resellers, and probably Steve as well. I'm guessing you might use resellers as well for some of your items as well. Okay, so it's important if you're using resellers to differentiate them from B2B. B2B are people who have the autonomy to change your pricing and to change your items. They are the end user of it. Resellers are if you are wholesaling out to people. So again, Neil and Adam, you might use resellers, hamper companies, for example, or farm shops and so forth. They're resellers. They are not B2B. They are different. This is about who the end user is. And you need to have different insurance in place to use resellers. And you need to have different T's and C's in place, because within those T's and C's and those contracts, you will be able to set the parameters by which they sell. So, for example, one of my clients works with Dry Robe, the people that do the big changing robes. Dry Robe have a rule that none of their resellers can change the prices or discount at any point in time if Dry Robe is not doing it themselves. They must be always sold at the RRP. So how does she make a special offer? She has to give something else away free. So that might be free packaging and postage. It might be a free toy or a bag or something else, a voucher to use at the shop later. But she cannot discount on that Dry Robe. Okay, you as the owners of your company, if you are using resellers, you can do the same, because what you don't want to be doing is selling to 4 or 5 different farm shops, and one down the road is getting all the business because he's selling everything out at £5 cheaper than anyone else, because you'll upset your other suppliers and they'll stop selling. And part of a good marketing opportunity, if you have a product, is using the resellers' marketing efforts on top of yours. And that helps you because that's within their budget, not yours. So that allows you a greater reach, as long as they're tagging you properly and crediting you for your information, your product. Okay. But you tie that down in your resale agreement. Okay. And you put all those terms in there. They must do so many social media posts a month or a year. They must never use this. They must use your logo. They must always credit those sorts of things. And by tying them down in that, your sales journey and your marketing journey becomes easier. Again, personas, you're going to get so bored of me showing personas. If you don't know your customers, you can't take a step forward, really. So please, please, please. And obviously these slides were written before I knew I was covering the other bit, so I apologise for the repetition. But you've got all these people. What do you do with them? So let's say we're all based in Somerset, that our total audience is Somerset. We're not going to cross the borders into Devon or Dorset or go up to Bristol or across to Wiltshire or anything like that. Can we say that we could cope with every person who lives in Somerset? I don't know the total population figures for Somerset, but I know that for the Oval area, it's nearly 60,000 people. I can't cope with 60,000 potential customers. I deal with probably 2,000 businesses through the Chamber of Commerce role I have. I can't deal with that either. So what I need to do is I need to segment that big cake, okay, that whole opportunity, and take it down into smaller, more manageable chunks so that I can target my efforts, my sales efforts in this. And when I'm saying sales here, I'm also meaning marketing as well. So this becomes part of your marketing strategy. Okay, so how do we divide things up? We can look at industry sectors. We can look at geography. We can look at demographic and geography combined. We can look at lifestyle, social economic groups, buying habits, and size. So if we're dealing with B2B customers, we might look at size because we might not be able to cope with some of the bigger ones, or we might just need one big customer and we might be totally comfortable to put all our eggs in that basket. So the way that this was taught to me years and years ago was, imagine this is one big cake, okay? No one can eat a whole cake. Will I argue that? I can very easily eat a whole cake. This is why I will never be Twiggy. That's fine. But business-wise, it's overambitious and it's naive at a push to say that we can deal that everyone is a potential customer. They're not. Do you know, have you in your marketing and business plans looked at your potential customers in this way? Were you already told this in the marketing sessions? Fabulous. So I won't labour on this. But the benefits of segmentation are that you can understand those personas. So you can create detailed personas based on smaller segments and individuals. Because when we look at content again, and we look at the conversations that we're going to have as sales conversations, which might be online, they might be written, they might be verbal. People always prefer it if we're talking to them, if we're making eye contact with them, if we're using their name, if we know a little bit about them. So tailoring it is really, really important. And this helps you then categorize your customers moving forward. So you can say, actually, the farm shops didn't prove to be as profitable as I thought they would be, but the independent supermarkets did, and the trade shows did. So actually in year 2 and year 3, that's where I'm going to focus my efforts, because there's no point in flogging this dead horse of farm shops. So I'm going to move forward with what really works, because I need to generate these sales. And what I'll do is in year 4 or 5, I'll come back to those farm shops and I'll put some renewed effort in there because I've got some budget then, because I've made some revenue, and you can come back to them. But if you don't know which areas are working, you don't know which ones to carry on with, and you don't know which ones then to continue your sales journey with. As well as understanding where your customers fit, it's important as well to understand the types of purchases that different customers make. Okay, so you've got your routine purchases, your tea, your coffee, your toilet roll, your supermarket shopping, things that we do really, really regularly. And by regularly, we're talking about sort of weekly or monthly. Okay, so for an office, this could be paper, toner. It could be pens, paper, that sort of thing. Impulse purchases are a different kettle of fish, and you have to sell them in a different way, and you have a different conversation. And if you imagine the last thing that you bought on impulse, what was that? Does anyone want to share what their last impulse purchase was?
Shoes.
Shoes.
Yes.
And what made you buy them?
I broke my other pair of shoes.
So that's not an impulse purchase.
Well, it is when you got feet my size.
Okay. Technically not an impulse purchase, that's a need that was there because you broke them. So something that wasn't generated by a need. We're talking about what
Sweeties.
was sweets. Okay. Were they high
Went in for
value?
milk. I went in for milk and I thought, just passed them and thought, oh yeah, I'll grab a bar of chocolate.
Okay.
But I didn't go in for chocolate.
What made you buy that?
I had to walk past it to get to the milk.
Okay, so product placement. So in a selling world, we're looking at product placement. We're getting that in front of people. Okay. That was deliberately placed there. There's a reason why there are sweets and chewing gum and things on tills. It's
Well,
for those impulse
most
purchases.
people will go in a shop to get bread and milk and your essentials, but you have to. It's right at the back of the store. Even in somewhere like Asda, have you noticed you've got to walk practically all the way across the store, past all those other goodies before you get, and that's why you end up going to the checkout and going, "Oh, I only came in for bread and milk."
Yeah, and
Without,
I've got a whole trolley.
mm.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
if you
funnily
think if
enough, the only time I buy a chocolate bar is when I go get diesel in my truck.
yeah, it's exactly that, isn't it? It's because it happens to be there. And if you think about chocolate bar wrappers, they're brightly coloured. They're different. So when you've got them all on a long display, it's like a patchwork quilt of joy, isn't it? It's just chocolate, 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 chocolate. It's fantastic. Some of the
There's
best.
never enough dark chocolate there for my liking.
I'm with you on that one, Clive. Far too much white chocolate. But it's persuasive marketing. It's persuasive sales. Okay, they become too easy to pass up. Okay, and impulse buys typically are low value. Sometimes though, we go, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to go in and buy that holiday. We very rarely buy a car on an impulse. We look at a car, we drive past it 4 or 5 times thinking about it. It's not normally an impulse purchase, it's a more considered purchase. Okay, and they're what we call complex purchases. So there's high involvement in that decision making. So we have to really persuade people. We have to build up trust. You don't go into a showroom and say, I just want that car there because I like it because it's red. You want to know about miles per gallon. You want to know about numbers of seats. You want to know about its history, when the MOT runs out, whether it's tax, whether it's diesel, petrol, hybrid, electric, or all the other versions that are coming along. There's a lot of consideration in there. And if our products and our services that we're selling are high value, they tend to be less impulse and more considered complex purchases. And if we're dealing with a business B2B world or a reseller, then we have to answer even more questions because they need to know about the benefits to the business because they think in a different way to we do. So with your new businesses, what's the last thing that you bought for your business,
A new
Julia?
computer.
Okay. And did you think about that longer than you would have about buying yourself a chocolate bar?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had to go in,
Okay.
talk to the salesperson, find out how many ports it had and whether it was a good make, compared to the others and all the rest of it.
So you had to justify it in a way. Now, if you'd bought that computer for yourself, for leisure, not for your business, would you have asked all the same questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you? That's
Yeah,
unusual. Most.
yeah, because I like to know I'm getting value for money and it does what I
Okay.
need
She's
it
tight.
Thanks, Martin. But you needed to justify it and you needed to check that it was fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking
So,
about cars just now, and you were saying that nobody goes in and buys a car because it's red. I actually would, as Martin has experience of. It's a car. It's going to do the things it says on the tin. As long as it goes forward and in reverse, I go for the colour more than anything.
She wants the car we have because it's pearl white and it looks pretty, but she won't drive it because it has too many gadgets on it.
Yeah, too much stuff, information overload. So I
Car
stick to
salesman's
mine.
worst nightmare.
so,
Morris
Julia,
Minor for you lot then.
in hindsight, then, Julia, you have been better rather than going for the colour, asking some questions about what it had on board and how easy it was to drive?
No, The only
Okay.
thing I'm interested in, being 4'11", is whether my feet reach the pedals. That's the only specification really, in the colour. That's, you know, it's a car. It gets me from A to B. But with a computer, because I'm going to be sitting on it for a length of time, and I need to know what it can do, and the speeds, and, you know, has it got enough ports that I need, that kind of thing. Yeah, that would interest me. But some things like cars, no.
Okay, fair enough.
So
You
it
don't,
depends, doesn't it? This is
yeah.
it. It's like your customer persona. What are they going for?
And this is why it's important to have those personas, because if you've got one product, you've got lots of different opportunities to sell it in different ways to different people who have different motivations. And that's why knowing your customers is the most important thing, and why those personas are basically pretty much the be all and end all of your whole business. Because if you haven't got your customers nailed, you haven't got a business. You've got products or services, but you haven't got anyone to sell them to. So if you do not know your customers, you don't know your business. All you know is your product or service. Now, many of you have got more than one customer. So Julia and Martin, with your business, you've got the carers, the providers, and you've got the clients. You've got two customers. So your message has to go in two directions, and one needs to be wrapped up in a sense of emotion and feeling and security and safety. And one message needs to be more dynamic about the possibilities of coming on board with you and the returns and investments. So you've got a B2C and a B2B client. Yeah. And getting that balance is tricky. And that's where it's important to make sure you've got the right people in your team behind you to understand that. Okay. The same for education, Joe. You've got multiple audiences. You've got the schools that want something that ticks a good box for them and makes their life easier. You've got the students at the end of it, and you've got the parents. You've also got Ofsted. Julia and Martin, you've got CQC, and you've got the regulators. You've got lots of different audiences that you have to please, and you have to sell to each of them. Because don't be fooled by the word selling. It's not repping and going around in a car and driving around and knocking on doors. Sometimes it's that, but the most of the time, selling and marketing are exactly the same thing. Selling is the act that marketing provides the information for and the intel for. Okay, but if you're doing it right, it's the same coin. It's literally two sides of the same coin, and you can't have one side without the other. Okay.
My difficulty is the prioritization, because in my example, like you're saying about, you've got to please the parents, the students, Ofsted, but then my messaging on my homepage wouldn't. If I start putting all that in there, it's going to bloat the whole site. Whereas I would say my core customer is the school. They're the people who are buying it. They're my main customers.
Absolutely.
So
And they're the people that are going to pay you the money. So they are your priority. Okay.
Yeah.
But your messaging, your content, your sales message is different, and you use different platforms for that. So you can use, typically you'd use LinkedIn and you'd use your website to sell to the schools. But you might also have a parent or student area on your website, a dedicated page that talks to them and gives them some freebies that they can take away, some nuggets and some interest, because student body groups, student voice groups, those sorts of things, the committees, the prefects groups, will also have a say in how that curriculum is and how what you deliver is integrated back into the school. But your opportunity to speak to those people without making your website like War and Peace or Encyclopedia Britannica across a shelf is to use your social media, so that your student and your person facing is done on the fast moving platforms, the Twitter, the Facebook, the TikTok, the Instagram, and your corporate message is done on the more corporate platforms. So again, the crossover being Instagram, but your website, LinkedIn, and by direct email marketing. And that's where you separate out the messages. And that's where you have to have two sales strategies.
Yeah, I think I get it. I think it was what was throwing me before is we touched on these customer personas sort of 5 weeks ago. And I think for me personally, I've always struggled with that, because I'm sort of struggling with who my customer personas are. And also, let's say front of house, Julie, who's the receptionist, there could be 9 variations of Julie, if
Um,
that makes sense. You can have a really approachable, wants to have a conversation, then you can have one that completely shuts you down. I know essentially there's other common.
They're called gatekeepers. They happen everywhere.
Yeah, and
But
amongst those, you've then got the same style with head teachers, deputy heads. There's like 15 different people I could possibly have touch points with, and I guess what I've got to do is try and narrow that down as my priority. But then at the same time,
have you tried the school of governors, the governors at the school? Because the school, they have meetings and they're ultimately responsible if something's going on at the school, or if they want something going on at the school, they're a good lot to approach.
the other way of looking at it, Joe, is rather than
influencers,
where we've got the persona and we have Flora, and Flora is such and such. Flora could be a set of characteristics, so it could be that gatekeeper.
I think that's why I need to
and then
separate
you can say,
it out.
And he goes, typically Flora is either a brand new head teacher, a reluctant head teacher, a receptionist, and you don't assign her a role, but characteristics.
I'm getting suckered into being too specific, whereas I think I need to be like that. I need to think of atypical characteristics for those individuals and then match that up with the messaging, which is what you're currently talking about, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
But
I'll leave it there. Thank you.
The other thing, Joe, is you've already done this. The fact that me and the other experts have thrown words like customer persona at you, you did this when you conceptualized and you thought about starting this business in your head, you already knew who those 3 priority customers would be. Okay, you thought about that before you even started down this road. The fact that we've now given it a title and said formalize it is what confuses most people when they start a business. You already know this. Just remind yourself, where did you start and why? And when you answer that why, I wanted to do this because that first because gives you your first customer. Who else will it benefit gives you your second one. And who is the decision maker gives you your next one. And you'll have done that even before you put pen to paper. You've probably done it at 2 o'clock in the morning if your brain works anything like mine does, and you've got to try and remember it. But you've done this. The fact we're putting titles on it and saying it needs to go in specific documents is totally and utterly a red herring. Okay, you know this. Because this is why you started the business. Because we didn't start the business to make money. We started the business to fill a gap that will hopefully help us make money. Okay, or because we have a passion. If we have that passion, we already know those customers. The other thing I always say is put yourself in that person's shoes. Sell to the person in front of you in the same way you want to be sold to. Market to them in the same way you want to be marketed to. If you don't want to be pushy, if you don't like pushy salesmen, don't be a pushy salesman. Okay, because it's not you. And you have to be authentic. And that goes across all of your sales and your marketing, is do it the way that you want to do it, have it done to you. Sorry. So competitor analysis we spoke about, and there's lots of ways we spoke about you could look at it. So your market research, looking on Google, looking at other people's social media platforms, looking at stats, reading reports from the ONS, government papers are really, really good. Blogs on things like council website are really, really good for the insight that you need for those competitors. They will tell you information, as Adam clearly put in there, that there are about between 550,000 to 600,000 people in Yeovil, in Somerset. He got that by looking at one of these websites that you would use for your market research. And again, this research should be in your business plan. Okay, in the appendix, this research should be there to say, we have looked and this is the potential market. These are our customers. These are the bits that they are currently servicing. These are the bits we think we could service better, or these are the gaps that they've left that we want to address. So this research should be in your business plan as well, because this becomes the fundamental tool of your sales strategy and helps you, beyond what we've already discussed, identify other sources of customers. Okay, and other ways that you can look at those competitors and say, well, we do this better. So therefore, this is how we need to market ourselves. This is the sales conversation we have. So if you go back and you imagine those old fashioned reps that were coming in and they're trying to sell you boxes of paper into an office, Why would I buy paper from the guy who turns up today at my office rather than the guy I've been using for the last 6 months? Well, it could be down to price, it could be down to quality of paper, it could be down to a number of different things. But if he comes in and he says, look, I know you're already using ABC paper, and I know that typically their price is £5 a ream, but we can do that if you take the same volume that I think you're already taking, because I know you've got 50 people in your office, blah, blah, blah. We could do it for £4.10. If I'm one of those people that is driven by price, then that's going to appeal to me. And it's all down to this research, but it's also about knowing what your competitors are likely to be doing. So it's following their Facebook pages and their LinkedIn profiles. It's checking their websites regularly to see what they're adding in, how they're evolving, because then you can stay ahead of them or at least stay up level with them. So you analyse the potential market share and the growth opportunities for each customer category, so B2B, B2C, B2G, etc. You identify emerging trends and you identify where there's niches for potential expansion. So Clive, what you're making, I would say falls into that category, absolutely, that there's a niche there that you are looking at fixing. So you'll have done this, you just might not have done it formally. And that's all this business plan, marketing plan stuff is formalising what's already in your heads. You highlight successful businesses and you follow them. If you're doing drinks, you follow the likes of Carlsberg, of all the Cornish gin companies and everything, the spirits companies that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. You follow them and you see what they're doing. Don't copy them, but learn from their expertise, because they're further down this road than you. So they've already learned a lot of these things already. So use them to help form your plan. Showcase the strategies and outcomes to inspire your own approach, and collaborate with your sales and marketing teams. Now, it's great, isn't it? So we talk about sales and marketing teams. It's basically us, isn't it? You know, we are the sales team, we are the marketing team, we're the IT team, we're the finance team, and so forth. If you're using experts, though, get them to talk to each other, because no sales or marketing company or IT company will not talk to another one if it's in the benefit of results. Okay. Continuously monitor your customer feedback. So your reviews, your comments on Facebook. It's not good enough to say, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to schedule a post to go out every single day for the next 3 months. Now I don't even need to log into Facebook for the next 3 months. You need to answer those. You need that engagement, because that's where your sales comes in. That's where your powerful sales happens, is in that engagement and in that conversation. And it's not about just giving information, it's about talking about it and discussing it by answering those questions. And what social media and websites have done for us is given us the way of doing that 24/7, which is onerous and it's time consuming and it's tiring, but it gives us an opportunity to be there when our customers need us. And you can set up automations and things for this, and you can have alerts that come through once an hour or twice a day or whatever you want, so they come through on your phone in manageable ways for you. But do monitor them. Don't just leave them. If you don't answer it, they will look for someone else. And unfortunately, that's our own buying habits now. Consider the last thing you bought, whether you went on eBay or Amazon or something like that. If you ever sent a message to a seller online, you know, Facebook Marketplace or something like that, how long do you give them before you start looking elsewhere? Your customers will do exactly the same. Neil, you were going to say something.
No, I was
Sorry.
just going to say, yeah, you don't give them long. If you don't get a response, you find a solution elsewhere. You know, I'm in relationship management, and if I don't respond back to my customers within a timely manner, answering their questions, then they'll either figure the question out on their own, in which case I've lost a little bit of the respect that they had for me, and a little bit of the power that I have when I need something from them. And you know, it's the same with customers. If you have a bad, it's that old adage, isn't it? If you have a bad experience with someone, you tell 10 people, but if you have a good experience, you only tell one.
Yeah.
It works the same online. If you unfollow, you're going to tell lots of people, or you're going to post over social media, don't use these companies because they're a joke, they're clowns.
Yeah,
So on and so forth.
absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of competition out there. The internet's a great way of us being found, but it's a great way for them to find all our competitors. So in Somerset, I think there are 26 marketing companies, true marketing companies. So how do I make sure that people find me above those? Well, I get seen. I make sure that I'm constantly there, but I make sure I respond, because if I don't respond, they will Google another one, because they haven't just messaged me probably. They've messaged 3 or 4. So then it almost becomes a bit of a race, which is time consuming. It's heavy, it's onerous, it's horrible, but it's necessary, unfortunately. And that's where sometimes using experts and outsourcing that is helpful, or having somebody who comes into the office and helps you every so often on a part-time basis, a student from the college on work experience once a week or something like that, can be really, really invaluable to you. And don't underestimate that if you need additional resource, colleges are a huge resource pool, because they've got students who are looking to work in companies just like ours all the time, because they have to pass their qualifications. Because we've gone like full circle, and it's much more vocational now than it was. It's like it was 25 years ago. And they are great pools, and they are great sources of intel as well, because their employer engagement teams deal with 4,000 or 5,000 businesses locally. So if you need intel about who are your competitors, who else are they working with, colleges will share that within the laws of GDPR, of course. But they're a great source of information and not to be underestimated, but so rarely utilised. Go in and speak as well to students, because students go home and tell other people, and they're great advocates. If you go in there and you're dynamic and you present to them, they suddenly get excited by what you're doing, and they tell other people, because teenagers, typically as they are, they just can't stop talking, whether it's online with their fingers on their phone or whether it's verbally. They just don't shut up, and they tell people lots and lots of things. So if you've got something really cool, or you've got a really dynamic message, talk to them. If you want to find out some information, go and ask them. Use them as a focus group. Even if they're not who you think your customers are, they'll soon tell you. If you're designing something, if you're thinking of something, if you're looking at flavors, or you're looking at functionality, how easy is it to use your app on your phone, Julia? Ask a blooming teenager, because they'll tell you. And if they can't work it out, then it's dead in the water, because teenagers can do anything with a phone these days. So use the youngsters, because none of us are getting younger, and technology will overtake all of us, but they know it, and they're great to sell to. And if you can sell your idea and excite a teenager, 19, 20, 21, young adult, you've got it nailed. And yes, Neil, 8-year-olds are classed as teenagers these days when it comes to tech. I would say that even younger than that, but that just scares me.
Yeah, my 3-year old don't shut up either. Between the two of them, it's just like there's times I wish I was deaf.
Yeah. When my daughter, who's now 16, was little, I had to I registered as a childminder, because I needed something that fitted around school. And one of the things I had to do was a risk assessment of my house. So I got my 5-year-old son, and I said, right, Thomas, this is a free for all. Tell me what you could do that you're not allowed to do, but tell me where things can go wrong. And he went, well, I could climb the chimney, Mum. And I'm going, could you? And he goes, of course I can. I can fit up there. Look. He was a great person. Kids are a fantastic source of information, whether you think they're your customers or not. They're your customers of the future, if nothing else. So engaging with them now means that when they're old enough to buy the spirits, or they're old enough to have their own house, or be using an app, or looking for care for their grandparents or parents, you're already on their radar. It's about fostering the long-term customer relationships, and that's about talking honestly and openly, and not actually selling. Passive selling is the best type of selling. So I hope everyone's stocked up on their coffee. So now we're going to start looking at why customers buy things, and how we address those needs in more specific detail, with a much more focus on sales. I'm going to try to not mention the word persona again, so that you don't feel pressured into those anymore. But what we're looking here is the different ways at why customers buy things. So we all have this split in our brain, okay, split between the rational and the emotional. And even more complex with that, as business owners, we'll also have an individual needs section and a company needs section, which a lot of our customers will have as well. So what we need to do is have a look at balancing these 4 quadrants. Okay, so if we have a look first at the rational motivations and company needs, the sort of dialogue and the sort of language that we need to be using when we're selling is to ask the open-ended questions. So things like, what do you require from a supplier? And if we ask these to our decision makers, they will start to list their rational, company-led functional needs. And these are the ones that they can clearly articulate. Okay, and they're well recognized and they will normally follow a pattern. So these are the absolute musts when it comes to selling. This diagram will be in your handout, okay? So they define a set of considerations, but they don't impact upon the supplier choice. These are about the products. So relative to the other needs, they have the most influence with items that are high spend and low strategic input and importance. So items where the price is the key reason for buying. In our rational motivations and individual needs, so we're still in the rational side, we're typically looking there at the person wanting to do their job well, wanting to fulfill a set of criteria. So they'll be thinking about questions like, how will this make me better at doing my job? Or how will this help me better in my home life and so forth? And they'll start looking there at what happens when it goes wrong. Okay, what happens if this delivery is late? What happens if it misses it? What happens if it's faulty? They don't normally articulate these needs to us, but they're things that we need to be aware of when we're speaking. So Julia, Martin, Joe, you'd be thinking, hey, what about downtime on your apps, your computer systems? What happens if that system goes wrong? What happens if the server crashes? You know, Neil, things like, what happens if they want 20 bottles and you've only got 12? What happens then? What happens if the delivery is late to that farm shop when that farm shop opens? And there's lots of different considerations within that, but they're not, buyers are less willing to articulate and take risks. So this is where we need to kind of mitigate against those risks before they know. And normally people think that would fall more into the emotional side, but these are rational, these are very strategic risks that they're talking about. So when we look at the emotional motivations and the individual needs, we're looking at strengths and weaknesses. We're looking at our accountability. We're looking at our likes. We're taking at things that make us feel good, that boost our ego. Okay, so this is like choosing a car based on its colour, not on actually what it does. You know, these are our individual needs, although they're quite often wants. They are what we justify as needs. So we talk to people in a softer language. We talk to our customers in a softer language here, where we're trying to make an emotional connection with them. So the blue side of this diagram is all about us answering strategic questions and facts, and to give comfort to risks. The emotional side is about us engaging with the human in that head and engaging with them on an emotional level that ticks their wants box. And that's the same whether they're buying for a company or whether they're buying as individuals as well. It's the things that make them feel special. It's at the right price at the right time. It's something that maybe makes them feel that they're better than the neighbours. You know, I've got a bigger car than you, or my such and such is faster, louder, whatever. It's those sorts of things. And business to business buyers typically want their suppliers to make them feel good and look good in front of others. So if you are selling into a B2B market or even to a resellers market, so wholesaling the drinks, for example, would be an example of this, Neil, then the people you're selling to want you to make them look better. They want to come off the back of your reputation. So you need to speak to them in this way. You will be one of only 10 farm shops in the whole of Somerset that we're choosing to stock our drinks. We have selected you because you fall into the top 10 consistently every year, and we want you to help us showcase our new range. you flatter them, you play to the ego. You also then talk about the company needs. So the brand fit, we feel that this will fit perfectly with your existing brand and your other suppliers because you're then talking about the company needs. But the person you're speaking to, you flatter. We've chosen you. It's not just a, hi, I'm ringing up to see whether you'd be interested in. No, you chose that farm shop for a particular reason. You chose it because you know it's one of the best. And you are more likely to sell to that customer using that sort of language than you are just going, hi, I've got some drinks. Do you want some? We can do a good price and there's some profit in it. Because they want to know that they are special. And if you think about everything we buy, other than sort of your supermarket shopping, your toilet roll and so forth, for the majority, we want to feel special. Whether we're buying for a business or whether we're buying for ourselves individually. But we also need to have that security and that safety of knowing that although this might be the nicest and the biggest and the best, and we've been flattered beyond everything, that actually Neil and Adam can fulfill our orders and they can get them there on time, and that we're not going to get high levels of returns or whatever. And of course, it tastes great too. So there's some real strategic, rational thought in there as well. But if you can tap into that emotional side of someone's brain, it's so much easier to sell to them than trying to answer all the rational questions. So knowing what makes people tick and doing a bit of research is really, really useful. This diagram shows a sort of circle for B2C, an online store, and also for B2B commerce. So the sorts of things that people are looking at, they're looking at buying online because it's quick. Oh my God, I've forgotten to send that Mother's Day present. If I order something on Amazon now, I can get next day delivery and it goes straight to their door. So I don't even have to wrap it or do anything. It just happens. You know, that ticks a big box for me because I'm awful at remembering birthdays, and I do send a lot of stuff so that it arrives on people's doorsteps for them because we've got a lot of relatives that live a long way away. So for me, this cycle here, get the mouse, is really, really important because it makes everything hassle free. And I don't know, Neil, whether you're looking, and Clive, whether you're looking at selling, and Steve looking at selling online in this way, but these are the sorts of things to consider. You know, is payment safe? How many times have you gone to buy something and if they don't offer you PayPal or whatever your preferred payment method is, you back out of it? My mum won't buy anything online because she thinks everyone's going to steal her card details. So she'll phone up an individual and give them her card details. She does. I keep saying to her mum they could be writing them down on a post-it note. She doesn't think that's the case. She thinks people are more trustworthy than computers. But she's quite happy for me to phone up on her behalf and put my credit card details into her purchase so that she doesn't get scammed, but I do. There sometimes is no logic that can be applied, and my mother is probably one among the least logical person you will ever come across. But we need to also sort of think about some of the logistical, the rational, what we would say are rational and functional things that have an emotional impact on the people we're selling to. How easy is it to pay? Do you invoice regularly? Do you invoice for each delivery? Will you take a copy of that invoice with you with that delivery? Can you pay in installments? Is it safe? And what payment method would you use? Is it only backs payments? Is it only checks? Is it only cash? Will you accept something like PayPal or Stripe or one of the other payment providers that offers an additional layer of security? And this goes back as well to having that website with that secure certificate and that secure payment certificate on your website as well, because that all becomes part of this sales journey. So if someone doesn't want to say, okay, I've got one of those little PDQ things that I go around with, an iZettle or whatever, or you can pay me on your phone, you can log onto the website and pay it as well, and I can upload your invoice there. That for some people makes a difference. For other people, it doesn't. But checking those things out and understanding these motivations is really important. And again, in the B2B e-commerce world, this is the sort of conversations that you'll be looking at having. They're a lot less complex. They're a lot more rational, and they're normally about logistics. So this is something that's worth considering. The bit that you do best or should do best is this customer experience. about building this relationship with them, treating them all as individuals in businesses, even if it's normally Janet you speak to, but actually it's, you know, Bob this week. Still treat him in exactly the same way as the person that you've always spoken to. Give him that experience, because then you've got two advocates in that company, which means this operational and efficiency bit becomes less important. It's still important to the business, but it's less of a barrier to you to buy. So let me flick into the other screen. There's lots of other external factors that come into this, and you probably did some of this as well in the marketing exercise when you looked at decision makers, gatekeepers, and so forth. There's lots of other people. How many times have you gone, I want to go to so and so on holiday, and someone's gone, oh, I went there and it was awful. We had food poisoning at that hotel, or something like that. You know, peers and information is balancing that information with that decision, and we all go through this different process and we take all these different bits of feedback in. Knowing which of these your customers are putting the most importance in gives you the start of your conversation, and going in there knowing how to deal with objections is the biggest skill in sales. I think, Neil, you'll probably agree with me there. Knowing how to stop someone saying no by preempting what they're going to say is really, really important.
Yeah, we spoke briefly about this at the last one, didn't we? And I think it was targeted around Joe. I think you asked a question around it, and so I think people think sales is going in and going, so do you want to proceed with the order? You know, it's that closure bit. And actually, do you know what? The closure's done before that. If you can answer their objections and resolve their issues and provide a service that will fix what they need it to fix, then actually you don't need to close. It's just, okay, there's the contract, sign it. And it's not really a closure as such because it's all done beforehand. But yeah, agreed.
And what do you think is the most important thing that you need to know before you go into that meeting, Neil, from your experience?
What that customer wants. It's their requirements. It's competitor analysis is great if you know what competitors, if you know who they're using, you can not bad mouth, but you can say, okay, you're right. So what's your, but with that customer, what's your major problems? What's your what the issues you're finding with them? How do you feel their services and things like that? And if you can counter all of those, then it's kind of like that they don't have an excuse not to go to you. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly that.
that's kind of the position that you want to get to. Not always easy with certain people. Some people are just argumentative for the sake of being argumentative and will want you to work and want a pound of flesh out of you just because that's who they are. But yeah.
You raise an interesting point there about bad mouthing the competitors. My advice is never ever do it. If you can go in there and you ask the correct questions of that customer, or you already know the answers, they will bad mouth that customer if they're not wholly satisfied. You never ever say, oh, well, we can do better than that person and make it a personal thing. You just say, we can address that situation for you better. So you always talk about the situation or the product or the problem, never about the other company.
Talk about your positives, not their negatives.
It's a very poor person that can only win by putting someone else down, in my humble opinion. And I believe strongly that if you've got a good enough product and you've done your research and you know the person you're trying to sell to and what you're trying to get them to do, what you're trying to get them to sign, that actually, as Neil says, you're already there. The job's already done. That meeting is the formality, and that meeting might be online or an email, but never badmouth it. When you go in there, you ask them the question. So I know you're using somebody else at the moment. How's that going for you? And they'll probably go, yeah, it's all right, because they are aware you're coming in to sell. Then you go, okay, so have you had any issues with delivery recently? Because we're using a new delivery system that. They might say, no, delivery's fine. Okay. Well, can I ask what sort of price you're paying at the moment? And they'll say £10, whatever. Okay. So I don't know if this is of interest, but actually looking at the quantity that you've already told me you're ordering, and looking at all the other factors within here, I could probably knock 10% off that for you. Would that interest you? Is price important to you? Actually, no, Neil, it's not important to me at all. I don't mind what it costs. I'm just really, really loyal to this company. Okay. So if you're not going to move from this company, is there any way that we can work with you as well? Because some people need more than one. Yeah. It's not always about knocking their existing supplier off out of the picture. It's sometimes about working with them. What sometimes happens then is that the other company goes, hang on a minute, you brought in Neil's company. I don't want to work with Neil's company. And then the client will go, well, hang on, you're the one acting like a child then. So sod you can choose to leave and I'll stick with Neil.
It gives them business resilience as well. Having more than one supplier gives them, as an organization, business resilience. And that is a great point for you to raise. It's like, if that we saw it during COVID and stuff with TNT deliveries and things like that. They got hacked and their whole system went down and they couldn't process orders. So companies that only used TNT for deliveries were struggling. But those that had DPD and others as well, were able to shift seamlessly to somebody else and just go through them. I had one recently with Cali gas. My barbecue gas ran out. I went around the whole of Taunton trying to get a replacement Cali gas bottle. Every place I went to gave me the same feedback. They're awful. They're rubbish. They don't turn up. They don't deliver replacement bottles. They don't refill the bottles. They're rubbish. The only one that actually gave me a solution was B&Q. And they said, "Oh, go to Flowgas. We've got about 50 different bottles out in the back that we can provide you. Oh, and as a Calagas ex-customer, we'll give you a discount on it as well."
So when
the other thing there, Neil, is ditch the gas and go charcoal. Have a proper barbecue.
What discount we getting here, Clive? Come on.
We'll talk about that another day.
So Neil, the next part of that question: who are you going to go back to when that gas runs out again? If it's not Clive and charcoal,
Yeah, it'll be Flowgas. Yeah, I've got a contract with them now because I know I can always get it. Or I believe I can always get it. Obviously, I haven't had a replacement yet. I've still got my Cali gas bottle, and I intend to try and replace it if I can ever source one. If not, then I'll just get a spare.
Good luck trying to get rid of that gas bottle as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Funnily enough, empty gas bottles, Cala or otherwise, are actually selling, on eBay, on Facebook, on because of there is a shortage of bottles. Let alone the rest of the supply chain issues, but there's a shortage of bottles.
What about caravan parks? We got one near us, and that's where our neighbour ended up getting one from in the end.
Sorry, from where?
The caravan park down near us.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably going to be potluck as to who's been supplied, in what sort of bulk and how quickly they move through their stock, I guess.
Yeah, it's a problem at the minute for everyone, isn't it? Then?
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it's hitting the hospitality industry as well, big style, because it's not just the Cali gas, it's also the CO2 and everything for the beer pumps and so forth as well. They're only swapping one in, one out type thing, so you can't expand. So that's by the by. But if you were a gas bottle supplier, you've got a really good opportunity now. Okay, you just need to make sure that your onward supply chain can support it. Okay, and that's another thing that a lot of customers will ask you is, okay, and how can you guarantee this? You're a brand new small customer. The company I've been using for the last 20 years is big. What can you do that is better than them? How can you offer me those guarantees? Now, some of the external factors in this diagram, one of them is beliefs and values and culture. And I just want to spend a little bit of time on that because I want to find out exactly what you think those happen to be. What sort of things would you put in those?
Excuse me. Unmute and then cough is really, really good, isn't it? So your beliefs are they're kind of it's their internal kind of powers. It's their It's what drives them. So, things like it could be religion, but generally speaking, you're looking at things that kind of are more, almost a little bit more emotional than just religion. It's kind of that.
If we look at this from a selling point of view,
Yeah, so
so
it's
so
what are they
religion could
looking
be
for?
that.
So are they looking for local? Are they or national? Are they looking for um vegan? Are they looking for things like
Yeah.
that? So it's all of those kind
So
of.
things like vegan, low carbon footprint, net zero,
Yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
thing,
Yeah.
buy local to support local. Absolutely right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at Neil, is those sorts of things. So if you're going into a company who's already buying from somebody else, so I don't know, Clive, maybe if you were thinking of going into chain of garden centres that's already got some of the bigger brands in there, what could be your argument? These are made locally. That's a great sales message for that garden centre, isn't it? Our stock comes from within 10 miles of this garden centre. It's part of
It
that
is
net
until that
zero.
chain. It is until those big garden centres are generally chains nowadays. And all right, so we could go into Monkton Elm, but the next one of theirs, the next branch of theirs could be Devizes, or it could be, Gloucester or wherever it is, and then it becomes less and less local. So you've almost got to overcome that. You need to sort of almost say, yes, quality Somerset product, but it's made in Britain using British labour and.
Absolutely.
But that's
But
where your
even,
marketing changes, isn't it? That's where
yes,
your
Mm,
marketing changes as your company grows. So you start local, and then as you grow and you start providing that to other, in this instances, garden centres nationally, you start saying UK produced, or Southwest sourced, or something like that.
and
It's
if
all
I,
those kind of
and if
terms.
I'm the buyer at Monkton Elm and you say, yeah, 10 miles, okay, yeah, we're really interested in stocking those at Monkton Elm. They fly off the shelves. They go, do you know what, Clive? They flew out. They went far better than we thought. We'd actually like to stock them in our other branches. One, can you supply us that many? And two, we still want to call you local. So they still can. That's their marketing choice, not yours. If they want to supply into Devizes and Gloucester, but and say still a local supplier,
true
that's
enough.
up to their wording. Okay.
True enough.
You sell to the first one in the chain as within 10 miles. It's their marketing department's responsibility then how they manage that moving forward. They might even say, made locally in Somerset within 10 miles of our Monkton Elm head office. That's up to them. That's not your consideration. Yours is getting your foot in that door, selling them a product that is amazing, that doesn't come back, that is just flies off the shelves and ticks their box their need, and let them worry about how they get it out to the next bit. That's why we use resellers, because it's their responsibility then. We're selling and delivering typically to one place. They will have vans going between all their garden centres so they can take your barbecues up to them, that you don't need to take your barbecues up to Gloucestershire for them. They will probably do that on their internal transport with the plants. Job's done for you. You don't care. You drop 100 barbecues off at Monkton Elm, sorted. Let them worry about the rest. But some
Mm.
of these external factors are more important than others. So some of them are about the information as well, and that drive the decision. So any one of these could come in there. So you need to be prepared to have a conversation about any of these, and probably another 50 that will evolve over the next few years and come into that conversation. You also need to be really, really aware of Bob down the pub again, because Bob down the pub has heard a story that actually it's not all that great what you're doing. And suddenly Bob is like the gospel. Oh, well, I had a friend who said such and such. Well, can you tell me a bit more about what his situation was, please? Because I'd like to understand why he feels that way. See if we can rectify it. Tackle it head on, not in an aggressive way, but in a way that actually makes sense within the context of the conversation and with the dynamics of the individuals involved in that conversation. But don't shy away from it and go, "Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll just go then. Do you want me to take my cup out and wash it up on my way out?" Ask them for more information. Even if you don't sell to them, that information is useful to put back into this process, so that next time you walk into a company, you've already got an answer to that problem. So you've preempted it. Okay, so this is a cycle. Although this is a very linear diagram, it is a cycle. And those stimuli are all around us. They're the advertising boards, they're the jingles on the radio, they're what Bob down the pub says, they're the pictures behind each of us in our screens when we haven't got filters on. They're the things that go, oh, look, I like Neil's headphones are much better than mine because his microphone isn't a bendy one like mine. He can pull it down and he looks much more professional. I think I need to look at that. There's lots of different stimuli around us all the time. They reckon that every day we see 2,000 marketing or sales messages just in our normal day-to-day life, and that's just a phenomenally scary amount. So we need to cut through some of that. And the big way we do that is to be prepared. Okay, to have done all our research, know our own products and services inside out, and be prepared for what's going to come in those sales conversations, using the right language and the right attitude to answer them. So this is called adapting our sales approaches, which is, pretty self-evident really. So you customize your approach, you tailor your strategies to align with the specific purchase type and those consumer needs. You use target messaging in your marketing and your sales. You can't go in there and sell to an individual and tell them every single thing there is to know about your company. You tell them the things that are important to them, the ones that resonate with their needs, which you've already established through doing your research, having a phone conversations, or asking other people that deal with them. There's a lot of people now have their supply chain and suppliers and companies they work with on their websites. There is absolutely nothing wrong as part of your research before your sales meeting to phone up some of those customers and say, I'm thinking of working with Neil at Spiritual Spirits. Can you please tell me a little bit about your experience, please? He's coming to my farm shop next week and he's wanting me to take 100 bottles a month. I know you stock them. How are they selling for you? Because people will talk and they will share. I would suggest that, if possible, you choose someone. If you're going to do that, you do someone that's outside of your area, so they don't see you as the competition. They'd be more likely to be honest with you then. And you take everything they say with a pinch of salt, because they are the competitor. But all these pinches of salt that you're taking with all this information, despite all the pinches of salt, that is all valuable, because it all gives you a conversation to have when you have that sales conversation. Okay. And you do the customer journey mapping. So you look at when you're selling to this person, you look at how they purchase, you look at how long their agreements are for, their contracts are for, if it's a business, you look at how often they buy something, and you give them the right information each time. So how long does it take someone to choose that new laptop? What do they need to do? So they'll probably search online a bit first. I'm guessing you had a look online, Julia. Then you probably made a trip to a shop. Then you talk to a salesperson, and depending on how convincing that salesperson was, depends on whether you bought it there and then, you went home and thought about it and went back to the shop, or you actually, if it's somewhere like PC World and Currys, you listened to the information, went home, Googled that make and model to see if there were any better offers on Laptops Direct or Amazon or anywhere else like that, and chose based on price.
Well, Jules had done her research. We actually only went to get a print cartridge, an ink cartridge for our printer.
Yeah. Ended up getting a computer.
That was your last impulse buy then. It wasn't chocolate, it was a computer.
That
was it.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, Martin, I don't think you should be letting Julia go to the shops with a credit card.
Well, no. They had a good deal. Buy now, pay 22 months later or something, or whatever it was, interest free. Okay. We needed one because I'm fed up with working off a laptop. I needed a bigger screen, so I thought, well, while we're here, and the bloke that we were talking to knew his stuff. He knew what he was talking about, and I had confidence that he knew what he was talking about. He backed up stuff that I'd found online, and Martin's got a computer like it, so we know it's reliable. And there you go.
I was looking at virtual reality headsets and I was shot down in flames.
No.
And the key word there was confidence.
Soundbar for the TV.
Yeah. The key word was confidence, but the key trigger point for you was the buy now, pay in 22 months, because as a new business, that would have been important to you for cash flow. And that in the cost of living crisis that we're in at the moment, interest free, buy now, pay later, buy two, get one free, all those sales messages have impact, because at the moment, the financial situation in the country and globally is not as secure as it has been in other years. So being able to use the right messages that come from some of these stimuli here, the external stuff, you know, perceptions, the situation, they matter. Now, when I started my marketing company, I said I needed to know more about what was going on in the world, because growing up in North Dorset and South Somerset, we can be pretty isolated and we can know very little at times. And I hate the news and I hate politics and I just can't be doing with all of it. But I made a promise to myself that if I wanted my business to survive and I wanted to do my work with the Chamber of Commerce really, really well, I needed to be more aware. So every morning when I get up and have my cup of tea in the morning, I sit and I watch BBC Breakfast News. Mainly chose BBC because I couldn't stand Piers Morgan, and now I'm kind of stuck with the whole dynamic between Naga and Charlie, which is quite amusing in the morning. But pay attention to what's happening globally as well. Okay, and what's happening outside there. So watch your local news. Okay, it's really, really important because that has an impact. Another thing that's really, really key, when I used to run a sales team, I used to run 32 people on a sales team. People are more likely to buy when the sun's shining. So if you can get your people in front of them on a sunny day, not a Friday afternoon and not a Monday morning, and strangely, Wednesday afternoons are really rubbish for sales as well. But on a sunny day, then you're more likely to sell to them because people are happier. There's something about the
Especially when it's
dopamine,
barbecues.
especially when it's barbecues. Yes. So, you know, there's other things to think about is working that out, but you will work that out as you go through your process. So collecting all this data is really, really important. And doing this customer journey mapping is really important. Because when you know what works, it gives you an opportunity to upsell and cross-sell. Okay. You can ignore the matrix. I include it because I like it. It makes sense to me. It's marketing, it's sales, it's great. But as you grow your business, you've got different strategies that you can take. And these eventually, not today, and certainly not for the purpose of this program, will become part in the future of your marketing strategy and your sales strategies, because you'll be looking at what to do in years 3, 5, 10, etc. So Neil might say, okay, I've conquered my market. I've got all my products out there. What do I do next? Well, actually, I might make some different things. So instead of spirits, I might start going into beers. Okay. And that would be a product development strategy. Or he might say, actually,
You read my
at the
marketing
moment,
plan. Have you
pardon?
read my business and marketing plan?
No, I haven't. But I used to work for a brewery. So he might turn around and he might say, actually, at the moment we're covering a 50-mile radius because we're delivering ourselves in our own van, but we want to cover further, so we need to earn enough to get another van with a distribution hub so that we can cover 200-mile service, like circumference. Or he might say, actually, do you know what, our drinks are really, really cool, but we've done all we want to do with the drinks, and actually I don't want to do beer, but what I will do is look at hampers and the treats and the nibbles that go with them and start going into a gift market. And all of these are in here. So cross-selling is complementary products and services. Okay. Upselling is higher price. So Neil might go, okay, you can have 6 bottles from us. That's great. But actually, if you take 12 bottles, I'll give you this discount. That's upselling. Or saying, take 6 of this and 6 of that, and you get a better discount. It's upselling. So it's about enhancing that revenue and enhancing the customer satisfaction by offering them more than they expect. And these different strategies will hopefully, as your businesses grow, become part of your future marketing plans. If you're at a stage where they are already, fantastic, well done, Neil. If you're not, please don't stress about these, but know that this is the next step. And it might be the next step in 10 steps time, or it might be the very next step. That's up to you and how your business grows. But always having this, what am I going to do next and what can I possibly cross sell, gives you opportunities. So Julia and Martin, it might be that you actually say, well, actually, I'm going to start partnering with the Care Commission Group, or we start looking at another provider doing something similar to you in a different area and bringing all your skills together and joining forces. Clive might find a charcoal supplier that he can deliver his barbecues on the back of their charcoal deliveries. There's lots of different ways that this can work for you. And some of those you can do on your own. Some of those you can't do at all. And some of them you will be able to do in the future using different ways. And this is all part of that sales message, because when a customer says, oh, but I really wanted to get 100 as a minimum order quantity, but Clive, you can only make me 50 at a time. This is where the next stage is. And that's one of those objections, one of those problems that you look at overcoming. And this strategy, this model is one that I would suggest that you do bookmark, because it will become easier.
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
my in-house marketeer is suggesting, or saying, actually, he's not suggesting, he has the experience, and he's just saying that actually the upselling is in accessorization with my
yeah,
product, and we should be looking at 20%, in terms of revenue over the original barbecue purchase, shall we say, and that is where the discounting is easier done. As a, for
yes,
instance, if you go to one of the big garden centres and look at the barbecue range, you will find Weber selling their leather gloves, gauntlets, which are effectively welding gloves, for like 25 quid each, hand 50 quid a pair. I could buy the same welding gloves, for £3 a pair, right?
yeah,
So the point is far much more markup value within that accessorization. So you can do more discounting in there, still make a killing on the markup, and your punter thinks they've done a deal.
absolutely agree. That's
And
why
another
Screwfix made
thing
all
that
their money.
Farmer told me when I was a boy, he said, "Here, son," he said, "when you're doing a deal, if you both go away grumbling, then the price is probably about right."
I'm not sure I agree with that, but I know where he's coming from on that.
Yeah,
But that's where
exactly.
where Screwfix made their money, and where they hit the market hard, is because they sold power tools. Not in the first few years, that was just screws, but they diversified their products to the same market. Okay, so they used a product development strategy, which is a medium risk. Just so you know, this bit here is about selling more of what you do to the same people. This is your lowest risk and your lowest return. This is your highest risk. This is brand new products to brand new markets. This is your highest risk. These two are the ones, the medium risk, medium return, that are best for most people. What Screwfix did was they started buying routers and drills. But for ages, they didn't sell the drill bits or the router bits or the screwdriver bits that went with them. And when they started doing those and packaging them, that's when it went global for Screwfix. I know, I was there. I used to be a power tool buyer for them. That's when it went stupid busy. And if you can do that and do exactly what Clive has suggested as well, by selling those gloves that you can buy in cheap and you can mark up, a set of router bits back in the day when I was working there 20 something years ago, used to cost us 67 pence to buy in bulk, because they had the buying power. They used to retail and sell them out at 19.99, which is a hell of a markup. So they could include them free router bits with every router over 150 quid or 200 quid or whatever it was, without even blinking. So looking at these sorts of opportunities is really a good thing to have in the future. You might not be there yet, and that's absolutely fine. So focusing on the here and now, have you all seen the typical sales funnel? Yeah. Have any of you included this in your business plan? This actual diagram? Yeah? You're nodding, Joe? No?
Not quite this exact one, but I'm starting to use something similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, draw an upside down triangle, call it a sales funnel, put in 4 stages, and then say at this top stage, there's 10,000 people I'm going to market to. I want to get in the first year through my marketing. Of that, my conversion rate is 10% to get them to the interest stage, which means 10,000 down to 1,000. Another 10% to get them to the desire stage. I'm down to 100 people. And then if I convert 10% of those, I get 10 sales out of here. Is that right? No, it's not going to be 10% for all your industries. And there are stats, if you look on the ONS website and the government websites, there are stats for typical conversion rates. And there's lots and lots of papers on marketing and sales websites Charles Institute Marketing, Smart Insights and so forth, companies like that, who will tell you what the typical conversion rates for your industries are. This will give you an idea of how many people you need to talk to get that golden sale out the bottom. Okay, it is not rocket science and it's not guaranteed, but it gives you an indication of the effort. In your plans, it's worth saying that you want to reach so many people with the hope of converting so many into sales. Okay, particularly if you're looking for funding, that's what a bank will want to know, is what effort are you having to put in, what revenue you having to put in to get those golden sales out the bottom. And then down the side here, I've put some bits, these people have put very helpfully put some bits that balance the traditional marketing at that stage and the digital marketing at that stage. Okay, so that's there just hopefully to help you. Now, this is sometimes called the sales funnel. It's sometimes called the leaky bucket because customers fall out, it like drips out of the holes in the side of a bucket. And what I'm encouraging you to do here is look at when you can sell. So during peak times, so Clive, now's not the time to be selling barbecues. You need to be hitting those in the spring. So now's your time to produce as many barbecues and build up your stock levels so that you've got stock ready for the spring to get out there. There are seasonal shifts in most people's businesses. Julia and Martin, unfortunately, we're coming into your peak season because people need more care during the winter months. You know, with the exception of families going on holidays, so the living carers going on holidays, this is the bit where most people need care because as the weather gets bad, people's health gets worse. So knowing your own seasonal shifts.
We're gonna miss that this year because of it's going to take up until about next February for the website if we get it going.
Yeah, we had feedback on our business plan. We've now got to change a load of stuff, so that's another 3 or 4 weeks.
It's not another 3 or 4 weeks at all.
Next year.
It's like we keep doing stuff to the business plan and it keeps coming back that we got to change this, we got to change that. And it's a bit disheartening to say the least because you think you've done it and pinned it and you're like, yes, and then no.
But you can still run your business. You can still start your business without that plan. You can still be having those conversations.
We need that
for funding.
We need that business plan and the marketing plan to apply for funding from the bank.
Absolutely agree. But you can still go into places and have the conversation and say, this is what we're planning to do and we're launching in the new year. You can already start that sales process going, even if you haven't got a product yet to display to them. You can do your research and have those sales conversations so that when that website hits on January the 1st or January the 2nd, you've already got a list of potential leads and contacts who are already warm to the idea. Shouldn't stop you talking about it.
No, we've been told not to talk about it.
Because otherwise somebody else will nick the idea and run with it before we can.
Someone will nick the idea and run with it before we get it off the ground. And if we get a load of contacts and, you know, carers coming forward and wanting to join up, whatever, and then we don't get the funding, we're going to look like right idiots. So we've got to do it. Yeah, it's a bit weird at the minute.
All right. Well, if you want to have another conversation and so we can talk about that in more depth, but I'm not entirely certain. I don't know all the specifics, but I'm not sure I 100% agree with that without knowing a bit more detail.
Okay.
But
no worries.
So opportunities to sell are when you can address the customer's pain points as well. But it's also important to know when to stop. Okay, when to not flog that dead horse or not to even push that door open. And that could be things like saturation in the market, low demand or interest, or if actually what you're doing is not going to be profitable. Okay, so I would say that it's just as important to know when to stop as it is to know when to start. Okay, so Joe's put in the chat, if it's going to take you 4 months to build the site, no one else is going to pitch your idea or build the site before you, which is a good point. Okay, but we can have a separate conversation if you want, Julia and Martin, okay? So, another opportunity for selling that has become bigger and more open to SMEs and micro businesses like ours is the bids and tenders landscape. And there's a difference between bids and tenders, and it's a very subtle one. And I would suggest that you go on a bid and tenders course. And there's quite a few providers in Somerset. Sally's got some details of them, that if you're looking for some bigger contracts, and Joe, I would suggest that you do this for absolute certain, that you look at a course. Now, there are some run by Somerset Chamber, Yeovil Chamber's running one in October as well. There is an independent company in Frome that does them. And this will help you research those requirements. Now, does everyone know what I mean by a bid and a tender? Yeah, cool. Okay. So they are a way of typically getting into some of that B2G market, but also getting some big clients in there. So big solicitors firms and that quite often put things out to bid and tender if they've got work in that realm. You'll get a lot of this in care as well. Okay, so a lot of these contracts go that way. It's really, really important, as it says here, to understand the requirements and make sure that you can meet them. Typically, these bids and tenders are for 3, 5 or 10-year terms, which means you need to, as far as it's humanly possible, be reasonably confident that you can fulfill it for that period in time. Okay, I suggest, rather than me telling you too much about this, you look into, there's a company called BBM, guy called Curtis. There's half-day workshops run by Somerset Chamber. There's full-day workshops run by Yeovil Chamber, and they are really, really valuable. I went on one myself about 6 weeks ago at, funnily enough, at Sally's suggestion, and came out of it knowing an awful lot more than I did, and I thought I had this nailed. So even if you think you know it, the landscape is changing, and it's really important to do it. Bids and tenders also have a social value aspect attached to them, which could be anything from 5% upwards. Government ones are all set at 10%, which means if you can tick some of the social value boxes, locally, green, you can help with employment, you've got good equality and diversity, you help people in minority groups, that all helps towards your scoring. But I'm not the expert in this. Sally's more of an expert than I am, but I really do suggest going on a course on this, because particularly for you, Joe, I think that this could be a make or break thing for your business. Okay, because most of the councils and schools use this system. Okay.
Yeah, I've literally just Googled bid and tenders for Sport England, because there's quite a large amount coming down from Sport England through the Active Partnership Networks, and also the Department of Education. And there's loads and big contracts of, like, I don't know, one I found here, modelling Sport England's contribution to uniting the movement, and that's 150,000 for 1 year. Yeah, there's loads of stuff.
But
yeah,
go
I
on a
need to look
course,
into that.
Joe. Go on to a course.
Yeah.
There's one, like I say, on the 25th of October here in Yeovil.
Okay.
It's £95 for the whole day.
All right, thanks. If
All
you
right.
could, I'll
It's
email
on,
you.
yeovilchamber.org. I'll put it in the chat in a minute, okay?
Yeah,
but
great,
it's really good. I did the course and thinking that I knew quite a lot of it. I learnt loads. Okay, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
right. So we've got our customers, we've worked it through, we know who they are, whether they're B2B, B2C. So how do we keep them? Okay, none of this is rocket science, but there's a few ways that we make sure we retain those clients and we stop them migrating to other people. We offer superior customer service to all our competitors. Okay, and I know we'll all do this. We all want to do it because you're choosing these careers because you care about what you're doing, and you will care about your customers. So respond promptly to inquiries and resolve issues. Like we said before, if you don't respond, someone else will. One of your competitors will. That's the problem with social media. It's also the opportunity with social media if you can be that first person. Make sure you personalize all your interactions so that person feels really, really special, that you are talking to them, that they feel valued and appreciated, whether they're telling you good stuff or bad stuff. And with that, you build those relationships that have to be two ways. A relationship is not transactional. It is a two-way dialogue that continues. You might consider things like loyalty programs. Okay. Buy 10, get the 11th free, that sort of thing with coffee shops. Keeps us loyal. The Tesco's Club Card, they haven't done that to give us vouchers every year to spend at Christmas on our alcohol or whatever. They've done that so they can collect our data. And that's absolutely right for them, because they then take our information and they put it back into their systems and they know what to sell us. But they make us feel special, because when they send us their vouchers, they send me stuff for dog food or cat food. They send me stuff for stuff I buy, which makes me feel like they know me, even though I know it's a con. We're easily fooled. Make sure you're looking at continual improvement. So ask for feedback and act on it. Okay, use surveys, feedback forms, things like MailChimp are really, really good. MailChimp will now do all your email communications and your surveys, and you can embed a survey into your newsletter, which is great. So you don't need to have two separate pieces of kit for that. Personalize the experiences. So talk about things. This is your upsell and cross-sell opportunity. I know that you bought 3 barbecues last year for your small shop. Would you also like my range of tools and gloves to go with that? Know your customers and personalize their experience. Offer value-added services, so extras like the gloves, like the tools, things that make them feel special. Provide them with free training and tutorials and handouts and things like that. Demonstrations. Offer to go and be on their stand if they're at a country show and demonstrate your product. Now this one, offer exclusive offers and promotions. You tell them they're exclusive. They don't have to be. You could be offering the same 10% to everyone else, but be careful if you do that they don't talk to each other. Okay, but make sure that you are rewarding loyalty with what's relevant to them, and then build that community. So in your social media, on your website, in your marketing, name them. If they're happy to be named, name them, share the love. If you help promote them, they'll help promote you. And they'll talk to other people and they'll do your sales job for you and they'll do your marketing for you, because we're a really polite society, despite what the news makes us think sometimes. If someone reaches out to shake your hand, you very rarely don't shake it back. And this is like the online handshake. So if someone recommends you, you recommend them. That's just the way we seem to be built. So word of mouth is your most powerful sales and marketing tool. And the way that you pull all of this together is wrapped up in a CRM, customer relationship database. They need to be GDPR compliant. A lot of you will have a list of customers on Excel spreadsheets. I suggest you use something like HubSpot or Zoho or one of the free versions to start off with, depending on what your budget is, because it will work for you and it's GDPR compliant. Okay. This will help you track your sales, manage your marketing, but give you those little bits of notes where, you can say, actually, I know that Steve's business is a family business and that maybe his daughter's going off to university and she's been looking at Coventry, for example. And you put those little personal notes so that you personalize those sales conversations next time. All right, Steve, so how did your daughter get on? Did she choose Coventry in the end? What about her A-level results? Did she get what she wanted to get? Those sorts of things make a difference when you're having a sales conversation, because that means that that person is talking to a human, not a salesman. Because salesmen are not human. They go in there and they just want to sell like that. But actually, if you can start having that conversation that's personal, then all of a sudden you become a human being to them, and they think you've cared. We all know logically you've looked it up on your iPad or on your piece of paper in the car coming in, or you've prepped before you've done that meeting, but it doesn't make a difference. What we logically know and what we emotionally feel can be very different, and our emotions 9 times out of 10 will overrule our head, which is why Julia buys chocolate, goes in to buy toner and comes out with a laptop, because that emotional need was more important than that financial need. And then she justified that to herself, which is absolutely how most people buy, Julia. Hate to break it to you, you're probably quite normal. Okay, this circle here takes you through the orders, the support, the after sales, everything, and is really, really key. Who's got a CRM set up already? Who's just using databases
We
and prospect
use
lists?
365 for our day job, but not in Milton and Chambers at the moment, but I need to.
Okay. Yeah, so HubSpot's good. What free version is a good place to start. It's totally free. You only pay for some of the add-ons when you need them. Okay, and I would say that if you did your HubSpot and a free version of MailChimp, you've kind of got that bit nailed. Okay, you've got the GDPR compliance in there. Emailing to more than one person using Outlook from an Excel spreadsheet is not compliant with GDPR. Please, please, please don't do it. The fines are huge. Okay, make sure you email through something that's GDPR compliant. Okay, and there's lots and lots of options. I use MailChimp because it's been around for donkey's years. I've been around for donkey's years and I'm too old to learn something new. Okay, and it's as simple as that, but it is GDPR compliant. But here you can track all sorts of different things within your business. So find the one that fits the requirements of your business. Some of them will also help you manage your stock levels and integrate with other things like your accounting software and so forth. So find the one that sits with you. Email accounts are limited to. Sorry, Joe, I don't understand what you mean by that.
So when you try and do group messages, if you try and send, let's say you've got 100 clients that you want to send to, and you try and batch, I want to send out 100 emails in one go, you get your email address will get blacklisted.
Yes.
So you've got to be careful of that. If it's your personal email address, you want to use one of those third parties, something like MailChimp or whatever. But keep that in mind.
It's important, like you say, if it's your personal email, it's even more important to avoid it if it's your company email, because that can kill your company. So we're nearly at the end, people. The last bit here is to consider your online marketplace, and this fits in with the selling part because obviously some of your sales will be done online as well as face-to-face. And there's two different patterns here, multi-channel and omni-channel. It's important for most businesses these days in the world that we're living in to adopt an omni-channel approach, and this is where it's integrated and it's seamless. So someone can go to your Facebook page, they can click straight through to your website, they can order. They don't have to go onto your Facebook page, copy out the URL and go through. The internet's been great at helping us adopt this omni-channel approach. What's also useful is if you are doing face-to-face selling or you are selling through retailers, is to adopt that again. So maybe consider having QR codes and things on your products or your services or on your leaflets or brochures so that people again can just scan it, go on their phone and order straight away, and use that omni-channel approach rather than people having to come off one to go to the other and take that multi-step approach. Consider it a bit like going on holiday and transportation and the faff of having to get in your car and drive to the train station, get out of your car with all your bags, get onto the train to go to the next train station, to swap platforms to get down to somewhere big, because we all live in the southwest and we can't get anywhere big on one train journey. And then you have to maybe catch a connecting bus because there's some rail works and you get back on the train. Then you get off and you get a shuttle bus into the airport. Can you see where I'm going with this? That multi-channel approach isn't there. If someone says, I'll pick you up from your door, taxi service, couriers, concierge service, pick you up from your door, take you straight to the airport, we'll get express check-in for you. If it's affordable, you're going to do it because it takes all that stress of the process out. That's what I'm likening this to, okay? So making sure that as you set up everything online, it is integrated like that is really important to that whole sales journey. And again, it's another selling point, because when we're looking at some of the companies that are 20, 30, 40 years old, they're stuck where they've always been in those systems they had. What you have, what I have as newer businesses, is the opportunity to build it right first time. Whereas they've got to retrofit what they've got within certain parameters, or in some extreme cases, stop trading for a period of time whilst they redo everything from scratch. And that makes older companies, traditional companies, far more resistant to doing that and less agile. So one of the big benefits that we have in this room or on this screen is our agility, and we have the opportunity to get it right first time from the start. So just consider this and how this fits into your selling as well, and how you can demonstrate this if you're sat in front of someone or you're at a show or you're going into a farm shop to sell to them or something like that. If you can take in your laptop or an iPad and you can demonstrate how easy it is, that you've got a portal where they can go on and log on and do it themselves, then that's again another selling point, okay? So we have hit midday, just in time for any questions.